Welcome to A1 Storyteller, where we bring you gripping stories that will leave you speechless. Today's story will take you on a journey of betrayal, injustice, and an unimaginable twist of fate. Stay tuned because what happens next will shock you to the core. Naomi Carter had never imagined that the man she once trusted would become the very nightmare that haunted her life. She had met Officer Brian Caldwell 3 years ago, back when she still believed love could defy race, social status, and hidden prejudices. She had thought he was different. How wrong she had been. Now, standing in front of her small home, she cradled their 6-month-old son Elijah in her arms, shielding him from the cold reality that his father had turned his back on them. Brian stood a few feet away, his crisp police uniform a stark contrast to the storm raging in his ice-blue eyes. His jaw was clenched, his fists tight. Naomi saw the tension in his stance. He wasn't here for a heartfelt reunion. He was here because he saw her and Elijah as a threat to his carefully crafted life. "I told you never to contact me again," Brian hissed, eyes darting around the quiet neighborhood. Naomi squared her shoulders. "You don't get to pretend he doesn't exist, Brian. He is your son." Brian took a step forward, his voice dangerously low. "Do you have any idea what will happen if my department finds out about this? If my family finds out? My career? Everything I built will be over." Naomi's heart ached. "And what about me? What about Elijah? You think we don't matter?" Brian exhaled sharply, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. "You were a mistake, Naomi." Her stomach twisted. "Say whatever you want about me, but Elijah is innocent in all this." Brian's expression hardened. "I can't have this ruining my life." His hand hovered over his gun. Naomi's breath caught. "Brian, don't," she warned, instinctively holding Elijah closer. Then, the unthinkable happened. Brian pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot shattered the silence, a thunderclap of betrayal. Naomi felt the searing pain explode in her shoulder as she stumbled backward, still clutching Elijah. His wails echoed in her ears. She collapsed onto the cold pavement, the world spinning. Blood seeped through her dress, warm and sticky. Her grip on Elijah never wavered. Her mind screamed, but her body was weak. Brian stood frozen, his gun still raised, his expression unreadable. Was it regret? Fear? Drop the weapon? The sharp command came from behind him. Suddenly, flashing red and blue lights painted the street. Several officers stormed the scene, their weapons trained on Brian. Brian whipped around. "Wait, this isn't on the ground now," one of the officers, Lieutenant James Holloway, barked. Brian's face twisted in horror as he realized what was happening. His own colleagues were treating him as a suspect. He dropped the gun, his hands raised. "I didn't mean she was—" Holloway ignored his stammering. Within seconds, Brian was wrestled to the ground, his wrists cuffed. Meanwhile, paramedics swarmed Naomi. "Ma'am, stay with me," a female paramedic urged as she applied pressure to the wound. Naomi's eyelids fluttered. Her strength was waning, but she held on to one thought. "Elijah. My baby," she gasped. "He's okay, ma'am. We've got him," another paramedic assured her. As the ambulance doors shut, Brian watched helplessly as Naomi was rushed away. His life, everything he had tried to protect, was crumbling before his eyes. Naomi awoke in a hospital bed, her shoulder heavily bandaged. Pain radiated through her body, but it was nothing compared to the relief that flooded her when she saw Elijah safe in the arms of her best friend Danielle. "You're awake!" Danielle exclaimed, rushing to her side. "You scared me, girl, but you made it." Naomi reached for Elijah, pressing a soft kiss to his forehead. "Where's Brian?" Danielle's expression darkened. "He's in jail. They denied him bail, and the entire city is watching this case." Naomi exhaled. Justice was in motion, but she knew the fight wasn't over yet. The trial was one of the most publicized in recent history. The courtroom was packed, journalists scrambling for details. Naomi sat in the witness stand, her presence commanding. Her shoulder had healed, but the scar remained, a permanent reminder of the betrayal. Brian sat at the defense table, a shadow of his former self. His once proud posture was slouched, his face hollowed. "Ms. Carter," the prosecutor began, Can you describe what happened that day? Naomi inhaled. He shot me while I was holding our son. Gasps rippled through the court. Brian flinched. The prosecutor turned to the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is clear. Not only did Officer Caldwell attempt to erase his responsibility, but he also endangered the life of his own child. DNA results, security footage, and witness testimonies sealed Brian's fate. The jury deliberated for only an hour. Guilty on all charges. Brian's face crumpled. His career, his freedom, everything. Gone. Naomi exhaled, holding Elijah close. Justice had been served. Naomi stood on the steps of the courthouse, Elijah on her hip. She had spent the last year advocating for policies to hold corrupt officers accountable. Her story had become a movement. Reporters swarmed her. Miss Carter, do you believe justice was truly served? She met their gaze, voice steady. Justice isn't just about one conviction. It's about change. And I'll keep fighting for it. As cameras flashed, Naomi knew this was only the beginning. If you thought this story was intense, just wait. There's more to come. Subscribe to A1 Storyteller for more gripping tales that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Let us know in the comments what you would have done in Naomi's place. Until next time, stay tuned for more shocking stories. V.